Hi, my name is Liz Toth, and I'm the Associate Curator of Live Animals here at the Boonshoft Museum of Discovery. And today we're going to talk about a word that you hear a lot this time of year, and that word is diet. Now, the diet that we're going to talk about today, though, is animal diets. And when we refer to animal diets, it doesn't necessarily mean a weight loss diet that the animal is on. The word diet, when referred to animals, can mean all of the food that they eat when they're living out in the wild, or it might mean their food that they get throughout the day when they're living under human care. And right now we're here in our animal kitchen at the Discovery Zoo, and we're going to take a look at some of the diets that the animals eat today. As you can see behind me here, we have all of the animals' diets posted, and the diets are just like a menu or a recipe. It has the animal's name, and beneath their name, it has all the foods that they'll eat throughout the day and the quantities of those foods that they might eat. So how do we create an animal's diet when they come to live with us at the Discovery Zoo? Well, a lot of our animals come from other zoos, and so their diet might already be set at that other zoo, which is great for us because then we can just talk with the other zoo and find out what the diet is for that animal already. We can either ask them to send some of those items in advance, or we can prepare here by going ahead and purchasing those items to make sure that they're ready for the animal when they arrive. An animal always feels less stressed if they have the same diet that they had at their past home when they arrive here at the zoo. Occasionally, we'll get bags of food sent from other zoos, and that way we'll be prepared. The animal will actually come and arrive here at the museum with that food, sometimes actually attached to their crate. So we'll be all ready to go for that animal. And that's really important because we don't want to have to immediately switch the animal to a new diet. It's just like with your dog or cat at home. If you're going to switch them to a new diet or a new type of food, you want to go very gradually and kind of add a little bit of that new food to their old diet, just to make sure that they don't get too stressed out and it doesn't upset their digestive system. So if we don't already have a diet prepared for an animal, how do we create that diet? Well, our goal for making the animal's diet is to provide the animal with a diet that allows them to look like they would look if they were living in the wild. So the first question we start with is, are you a carnivore? Are you an herbivore? Are you an omnivore? We also have some frugivores and insectivores as well. So we'll start with that basic information. We might compare at other zoos what they're feeding a similar animal, but we'll use that basic information to formulate and put those foods together. So for instance, our river otters, they're a carnivore. So they might eat fish, meat, eggs. Occasionally we'll throw in some vegetables to fill them up a little bit because they like to eat, but meat will be most of their diet. If you're an omnivore, like our kinkajou, you might have some insects, some eggs, some fruits. If you're an herbivore, like our prehensile tail porcupine, you're going to be eating a lot of vegetables. You might also eat some fruits as well. If you're a frugivore, like our fruit bats, it's going to be almost 100% chopped fruit. And last but not least, our insectivore, our three-banded armadillo, will eat a lot of insects. And now in this case, we're actually pretty lucky because there's already a prepared zoo diet called insectivore chow. So in addition to his insects, he'll get a serving of insectivore chow each day as well. Now we're going to talk a little bit about presentation, because for animals, just like with people, presentation is really important when you're eating your meal. So for some animals, we'll cut it into a specific shape that helps them to eat it a little bit better. Like for instance, with our sloth, we'll cut it into stick, or what we call French fry shape. That gives her a chance to hold on to it and eat it a little bit more easily when it's cut into this shape. Some of our animals might need to have it cut into a smaller shape, like our Egyptian fruit bats. It's recommended that we cut their fruit about the same size as their skull. So we'll cut it smaller so that they can chew it and eat it a little bit more easily. Some animals prefer to eat their food whole. So for instance, our river otters, we will give them some whole fish, and that allows them to hold it with their paws, and they can tear that food, and that helps to keep their jaw strong and to help keep their teeth nice and clean. Now, for some animals, we might give the same type of vegetable just in different presentations. So for instance, you can see a couple different types of carrots here that we have cut into different shapes. So for our river otters, even though they're more of a meat-eating animal, we do give them some vegetables to help fill them up. We'll give them a carrot in a whole shape so they can hold it with their paws and chew on it and help to keep their teeth clean and their jaws strong. Some animals that don't have quite as strong of jaws might need steamed carrots. So this is a steamed carrot. Our fruit bats that like to eat ripe fruits, that will help them to eat something that's a little bit softer, and we might even cut it into a smaller size so they're able to eat that a little bit more easily. Some animals, like a bird that has a tiny beak, might need their carrot shredded. So when it's in this size, they can pick it up easily and they don't have to worry about trying to break it off of a larger piece. Colors and textures are also very important when creating an animal's diet. So for instance, with our eastern box turtle, red and green colors help them to have an increased appetite. So we'll make sure that we include some tomatoes, some green grapes, maybe some leafy greens in their diet, just to make sure that they eat a little bit better. Texture also is very important. So with our three-banded armadillo, we take his insectivore chow, which is a prepared chow for insect eaters, and we'll soak it in water. That will make it just a little bit softer for him because he does have really tiny teeth. So soaking it makes it a little bit softer texture and also helps him to get a little bit extra moisture in his diet as well. How often is an animal fed? The frequency at which an animal is fed is something that we have to consider when making their diet. So some animals that have really high metabolism, like our river otters, they might eat 3 times a day. Other animals, like our eastern box turtle, might eat 3 times a week. Some animals we have, like our snakes, only eat once every 2 weeks. So it's very important to consider how often an animal eats when formulating their diet. A different type of presentation might be enrichment presentation. And enrichment just helps to give the animal some mental stimulation and give them some different behaviors to do for the day. So for instance, if they normally eat apples, we might give them a whole apple for the day. This might not be the easiest thing for them to eat, but in the wild, animals have to work for their food. So when we give them a whole apple, that gives the animal something to do and keeps them busy throughout the day. For some animals, we might give them a puzzle. So for instance, we might have a skewer that has some fruit on it that they have to work to pull from the skewer. Some smaller puzzles like this might be good for our fruit bats, where they have to work to pull that food out, and it helps to keep them busy and promote mental stimulation. Some puzzles, this one's pretty easy, but we do have some where you have to press a button or slide a lever and help to get the food out, and it helps to keep the animal busy and active throughout the day while they're also eating their diet. How do the animals know when it's winter? Here at the museum, they can still tell the change of seasons. So some of our animals might slow down a little bit during the winter. They might not eat quite as much as they normally would during the warmer months. So for instance, animals that hibernate, like our snakes, during the summer they might eat once every 2 weeks, but during the winter time, even though they're in a nice warm museum, they seem to know that the temperature has dropped a little bit, that the daylight hours are a little bit shorter, and they'll start to slow down in their eating. So they might not eat quite as often, and this is where the animal's weight is very important. We weigh each of our animals once a month. So even if the animal is not eating as often, if their weight is still good, if it's still in the range that we want it to be, then that's acceptable. Individual differences are also something important to think about when formulating an animal's diet. One of our senior animals might need to be more concerned about their weight. If they have too much weight on, they might develop conditions like arthritis. We may need to give them vitamin supplements with their diet just to make sure that their joints stay nice and strong. Some animals might be picky eaters. For instance, We have a kinkajou who's a very picky eater. So we've tried different things to increase his diet intake, but one of the things that we found that he likes the most is a kinkajou cookie. And so if you're on a diet, of course, you would love to eat a cookie, but these are actually really healthy cookies. They don't have any sugar in them. They're just made from bananas and oats. So this is something that we can give him just to give him that little extra boost to get the calories that he needs to stay at the ideal weight for him. As you can see, there's a lot of things to think about when creating an animal's diet. What would you like to have in your diet? Comment below. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see you soon at the Boonshoft Museum.